Hello there. I am so excited to have y'all here. I hope you're having a really fantastic week. I am. I am. It has been fantastic. Everybody knows that I fell and busted my capoozle. I'm better. And I am really excited about tonight's show because there's so many different things to go along with these topics. Samuel Chong is a really fascinating person. He's got a wide range of interests, but he is an attorney, a court interpreter, a translator. He is a UFO researcher, and we're going to be talking about how that came along. He has a lifelong interest in the paranormal, UFO, spirituality, and I think this is going to be a really fun interview and a really interesting one as well. So, Dr. Chong, Samuel, welcome. I'm so glad to meet you.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. You know, I also am interested in the paranormal and spirituality as well as ufology. And I started my research as a paranormal investigator with visiting locations that were ostensibly haunted and learning what was there to interact and that type of thing, and how to not interact with something that I didn't really want to be there. So, how did you, first of all, did you grow up in China?
Yes, I grew up in China. I was born in 1978, and I was fascinated by the ghost stories in China. People say that people in the rural areas of China communicate and see ghosts, and there are some kind of consequences if they get in touch or get involved with the business of ghosts. So I was fascinated by what ghosts are, and also I was interested in learning more about how everything works the way it works. So this is why I was on a journey to find out as much possible about the paranormal and the unknown. So I was fascinated by the topics of ghosts, the paranormal, the Bermuda Triangle, the UFOs, ETs, ancient civilizations, and so on and so forth.
Well, how long have you been lecturing and teaching on these topics?
For the last about 8 years or so.
How did, when you were investigating and learning about ghosts in China, what kind of hauntings are considered, for lack of a better word, normal there?
Well, some people can see ghosts. It's their innate ability or gift. They're able to actually communicate and actually to interact with the ghosts in China, but others cannot see them. So a lot of people in China believe that ghosts are not real. They're pseudoscience, or they're just not scientific enough for them to believe in. But there are also other people who believe in ghosts and can actually do a lot of things that amaze people like me. Because I think people need to have an open mind in China. And in the last few decades, the government imposed on the people a belief system in which everything in the past, when people talk about ghosts, there's superstition. So that's gradually changing as more and more people began to speak openly about what they can see and interact with.
Is there, because with China's government and their background is one of the most beautiful ancient cultures that there are, but there is a strictness, is there not, in the belief in following what the government says you must believe?
Yes. But fortunately enough, a lot of people don't believe in the government anymore. They know that the government media just promote the propaganda, and they don't read the news anymore. They just believe in the social media and also stories told by their friends and family members. and I think it's applying to more and more countries in the world.
Is it safe to do that?
It is safe to be in China because there are surveillance cameras everywhere on the streets. There are no thieves in China anymore because they know they're going to be caught, and it's quite safe if you can get there as long as
Right.
you don't speak against the government.
Well, that's one of the things that I was curious about because it's such a it's so strict. Like, don't go against the government. Is there a basing on things that I've read in other communist countries and cultures and things of that nature, is are they open to religion? Period.
In China, no, they're not open to religion at all. They just took all the Bibles out of shelves. So in the last few years, people cannot buy the Bibles anymore online. It used to they were used to able to buy the Bibles online from some of the online stores, but not in the last few years.
What
So
about Buddhism?
Buddhism, the government has been cracking down Buddhism as well because there's a lot of corruption in Buddhism. One of the most famous monks in China was kind of persecuted by the government because he was allegedly very corrupted, sleeping with a lot of women and getting a lot of money from the people who kind of donated to the temples. So it's really, really interesting time that the government is doing a lot of things to really discourage people to believe in anything religious.
Well, it's tough wherever you go sometimes, isn't it?
Right. But as we can see, there are a lot of things that the religious organizations did in China that are not really trying to motivate people to be spiritual. There are a lot of corruptions in the religious organizations like Buddhism and Taoism in China. Everything becomes distorted once it goes into China. So it's a different story.
Okay. Well, I've never been there, and I love learning about different cultures. So I have friends from China who live here now. I live in a city that has a strong research medical community. So it's there's a lot of people that come here for that. We're very multicultural. And hello, Lori. We are very fortunate because we do get to interact, but I love to travel. And so far, I've been to Scotland and to Belize as far as out of the country and, the Bahamas. So going east, I think would be, well, west for me, but I think it would be so neat. And I love when I get to talk to people from different cultures like you. So, but when you brought up ghosts and interaction with ghosts, I was like, oh, that's very non-China. I mean, it just seems like that would be such a bad thing for them.
But when you do go travel, I would strongly encourage you to visit Japan and China and also
Yes.
Vietnam and compare the three countries.
What about Bangkok and
Thailand
Thailand?
is a very nice country too. It's a very Buddhist country. People are very polite and nice. There are a lot of very interesting and delicious tropical fruits like mangosteen, and you can try out.
My sister loves Thailand, so she's done many Buddhist retreats there. So
Yeah,
a cool place.
lovely
Well,
country.
how did you move into the realm of ufology?
As I was very curious about ghosts, reincarnation, near death experiences, and also the Bermuda Triangle, the pyramid, I was thinking like people on Earth cannot really get to the bottom of everything. What about the ETs, extraterrestrials? If they can come and visit us, they must have advanced technology and knowledge. We can just learn from them. They can explain to us how everything works, what happened to the Bermuda Triangle or the Great Pyramid of Egypt, we can just get a shortcut and to really advance more progressively, technologically, and also spiritually. So that's my innate motivation of getting information from ET contactees. So I was searching for a lot of books written by ET contactees, and then that's when I found out that there's one book that can answer everything. That's the Theoba prophecy book that I'm going to be talking about.
Yes. Well, how did you find that?
Well, as I was searching for books written by ET contactees, I was browsing on Amazon, searching books ET contactees, and then they had the search like recommendation of the book, but at that time it was titled "Abduction to the Ninth Planet." It sounded very interesting to me, but it was selling very expensively, over $100 or so. So I checked the book out from a local library through their
Always a good
interlibrary
thing.
loan service. Yes, and I borrowed the book and then I read it, and I couldn't put the book down because it's so interesting and so intriguing and so fascinating.
What was, first of all, I understand how you wound up with it, right? But what was the part that first just reeled you right in and you knew this was what was going to be the right way for you?
Well, as I was reading the book really, to me, was a science fiction because everything it talks about is just so far out. Talking about the history of mankind, starting from 1.35 million years ago on Earth, and we all came from different planets. That sounded to me like a science fiction. And then
Yes.
after reading the book until the chapter on who was Christ, it talks about that there is a tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan, that people can still visit and check out. So I did my research. I searched online immediately and found out that yes, there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan, in Shingo Village, Japan. And the description of that tomb matches the description of the book, Theoba Prophecy. That really shocked me because some people know that Jesus went to India, but not many people know that there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan. And
I had never heard that either before that.
right. And the author wrote a book back in 1978 after he encountered the ETs. And he published the book in 1993 in Australia, years before internet went to Australia. And he never traveled to Japan. So that's the turning point, making me believe that everything written in the book has to be checked out.
Well, I can see that. You know, when you come across something that seems impossible, then it's time to give it a look. I'm with you on that.
Yes. And then that's when I started to check out everything, every detail written in the book, and everything can be verified. For example, when the author, actually, let me tell the story about the book. The book details that the author's experience, personal experience of being taken by the ETs to their planet for 9 days before coming back. And he was told about many things about the history of mankind, about the real dangers on Earth. Number one being money, number two, politicians, number three, journalists and drugs, number four, religions. And he actually revisits the stories of the ancient history of mankind on Earth. A lot of the stories were actually recorded and documented by the Bible, by the ancient scriptures. And he actually detailed a lot of his experiences. And I checked out some of the details. For example, when he entered into the spacecraft of the ETs, they disinfected him using yellow light and blue light. It turns out that blue light has antibacterial effect based on a paper published by Harvard Medical School years after the book Theoba Prophecy was published. So
Yeah.
a lot of details like that can be verified.
Yes. And, you know, there's so much in ancient learnings like this that blow people's mind. And we have a history of being a little different ourselves in this period. And I think everyone knows someone who is an herbalist, who is into, well, even yoga and meditation are healing things that
Yeah.
you don't need modern medicine for. It's, I mean, it's true.
It's true, and the book talks about that.
Mhm.
It talks about
Yes.
that everything is about vibrations. You can use
Yes.
a vibrational frequency to neutralize gravity so
Mhm.
that everything will become weightless without weight. This is how they built the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And this is how they were able to actually build the statues on Easter Island. Everything is about vibrational frequencies. And if you think about herbal medicines,
Mhm.
each herb, each medicinal herb has its own unique vibrational frequency. If you boil the herbs into water, in boiling water, it actually passes this vibrational frequency onto the water, onto the liquid or tea. So the water, the tea becomes like the carrier of the vibrational frequencies of the herbs. So when you drink the tea, the liquid, you're actually drinking the vibrational frequencies of the herbal medicines. And this is how herbal medicines work, actually.
Well, I know that I do know that herbal teas work. And I know that with not necessarily, I haven't necessarily had healing from ingesting, but I have had healing from applying. And I I believe in poultices. They they work. And I do know also that psychologically certain teas are very good for different things that are going on with you. They're also very good for healing congestion and flu, I mean, helping the symptoms of that anyway. People don't really understand that so much in my culture and in our culture because we just don't open our minds to that very often. It's getting better. People are starting to understand that you don't necessarily need to be eating a pill or, you know, doing serious medicine to have good effects.
Exactly, because the healing process and why healing works is actually pretty advanced knowledge. Because
Mhm.
according to the book Theoba Prophecy, it talks how your mindset affects the auras.
Yes.
Yeah, the mindset actually affects the chakras, and the chakras affect the auras, and the auras affect your physical body. And the healers can actually interact with your auras or chakras by giving you the right energy so that you can heal yourself, heal your energy fields so that they can heal your physical body. So it's a different process from the conventional drugs, Western medicine. The Western
Yeah.
medicine only kind of remedies the symptoms, but not the root causes.
Mhm. Yes, I had a pretty bad accident at one point, and my husband and I had he plays poker, so we go to Las Vegas, and so we drive down to different places to go visit, and we had driven to Sedona, and we were only going to be there for one night, and he was like, "Why don't you see if you can get your chakras aligned?" I was like, "Well, kind of short notice." A woman, and it was supposed to be because a woman was there to do that, but she had a client going with her, and that client said, "Sure, tell her to come along." And I was like, "That's kind of personal. Are you sure?" you know. And it was so astounding because I got to go on a tour of Sedona with my husband. We just took our own. We did our own tour. We went to the different places, and then went to visit the different. Um, I cannot remember what they're called. They're like portals, but that's not what they call them. And
Wortals.
so Yes, vortexes. So when we did the chakra alignment in the well, on one of the vortexes, and when we left, it was so different. It was very, very different. My emotional side was so much better. My physical side started to improve. And if I hadn't been a believer prior to that, I would have been when I left. And it was just really something that is ancient. I mean, it's how we're supposed to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
And we get told all the time that we're not enough. We can't do that. And yet we can.
Right, we can
With
do
help.
that. Yeah.
With help. We have to understand what the help is. So.
And actually, the book, The Yoga Prophecy, gives a solution, gives a direction where everyone can help him or herself by meditation, by meditating, by praying, or just by looking inside for answers. And you can actually activate your immune system just by meditation. I was in India about 2 years ago. I was telling them about the effects of auras and also why the Ganges River has the water from Ganges River has healing effects. And then one person came up to me. He said, Samuel, I was diagnosed of terminal illness, terminal cancer. And the doctor said that I have only about 6 months to live. What I did was I meditated every morning for 2 hours under sunshine in a shade. And then 6 months after, I went to re-examine myself, and then the tumors disappeared, and the doctors were shocked. So this is what he told me. Actually, meditation is a very, very useful and effective tool for self-healing.
And as I'm sure he was doing in his case, directed meditation is amazing. I mean, as in his case, back before my dad used to be an administrator for Comprehensive Cancer Center. He was very involved with the American Cancer Society and all the research therein. And one of his best friends developed leukemia, and it was not going well. And like your friend, you start looking for alternatives to what the doctors are telling you, because back then, I mean, we're talking the 80s, mid 70s, 80s, and it was not easy to be a cancer patient at that time. It still isn't. I'm not downgrading that. But the treatments were very rough. They were very primitive, I felt like. And people would get more sick really from the treatments than they were already from the disease if it hadn't progressed far. And so when they got to where they needed to find another way, that was generally the way they went. Because even if you weren't healing your body, you were healing your spirit. And they felt like they were getting something. And then as they grew in that practice, they started realizing, well, this is bizarre, but very amazing. And I'm going to trust this process. Do you think that trusting, because the Thibodeau is it's fairly specific on what you need to do, isn't it?
Yeah, if we are talking about the meditation practice, then it's actually pretty simple to do. Is you can just relax your mind and relax your muscles and breathe slower than normal and try to empty your mind. And that's actually the process. This is the gist of meditation. And I think everyone can do it very easily. Or alternatively, if someone is religious, especially a religious Christian, then can just pray. But praying there's a technique. You should go into a place in which it's very quiet, and you can the same thing what the Catholic priests did in the past. Just meditate with all your mind power, with all your heart, and there's a way to pray as well, which is to be thankful of everything was given to you, and then to really use your subconscious mind to hope for something that will come better. And if something that you're hoping for um, helps with your spiritual development, then you'll become real. You'll manifest. But if
Right.
you're praying for like winning the lottery, then there's a discernment. If it
Yeah.
helps you with your spiritual development, it'll come true. If it doesn't, then it will not come true. So that's the magic of praying.
You know, they're very similar. And yeah, a lot of people look at those two things as being different to the point of not being able to have conversations with people that don't believe as you do. And I've never seen the sense in that. I mean, we're all citizens of this world and we all have to live on this planet together, ostensibly, right? Until
Yeah.
something different changes. And we have to be able to have discourse and to understand that, like this, that's so similar. It doesn't rule, you're not ruling anything out because they are such similar practices. It's a beautiful thing, I think.
Yes. And knowledge is power. Once people have the knowledge, they can really act on their own and take the initiative. A lot of people have been actually waiting for the government or for the media or for the authoritative figures to do certain things. They need to realize that they have the power, the people have the power, and the government serves the purpose, the wishes of the people. Then if we make the initiative, if we act, then we are going to change everything. We should not wait for others to make the lead.
Yeah. I just think that I don't know. I just think everybody should, and I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm really not a Pollyanna. Maybe, but I think that sometimes you see such growth and moving toward that, toward being like unified in some practices. And then other times it's like, nobody's getting along anymore. What is wrong with our energy here? And about the only thing I have figured out is that I can change my energy, but I can't really change anybody else's. So I work on me. Sometimes that works really well.
Well,
Sometimes not so much.
yeah. Well, everything's connected. I think if we help each other and act together, then we're going to change gradually more and more people towards the harmonious nature of our society overall. And the issues with conflicts here and also in the world are a little bit more complicated than most people think. And it goes back to the four real dangers on Earth. Number one is money. If you look at the wars in the world, everything revolves around money. The military industrial complex, the military defense contractors, they need to have wars in order to have more money for their shareholders. So this is why a lot of the wars are actually created. So I think if you look at history, you're going to see that the people don't really want wars at all. It's the small group of people who want to profit from the wars created the conflicts in the world. Either it's religious conflicts or otherwise. Yeah.
Well,
And actually, the book is the solution. What we
yes,
need
it
to do in
is.
order to make it more peaceful.
Well, it really is. And yeah, I think I told you that I don't even remember how long ago it was that I had a guest on who was also very interested and lived by this book. And I was like, really? And that wasn't even what the show was about. I mean, So he was like, "You've got to read this." And I was like, "Well, okay. Got to's always get my attention, But then I'm sorry, but when I saw you and your bio for the conference, I was like, because I've seen you on interviews before, but I had not really had a chance to get involved with this because still raising children, still doing, things. And I just never got all the way through it. And so, but it is life changing. Just the bit that I did get through was just so neat. And I'm interested in your lecture because I think that there's going to be some people that are changed during that lecture. And I'm interested because there's a lot more to you also, but you bring this outlook to that. And that's an interesting concept for me too.
Yes, the book actually changed my life for the better. Give me the knowledge to make the right choices in my life. And actually, Warren Buffett says that the best investment is to invest in yourself. And this
That's
book, reading this book has been my best investment. And because it really gives the knowledge to really act in certain way to help not only myself, but also my family members, my friends, my associates, my colleagues, and everyone else is amazing book.
What is one of the favorite ways? What's one of the favorite ways that you have seen it affect your ability to help, like maybe somebody that's not such a close contact, but that you interact with daily?
To help people like
Do you,
that.
do you lead by example with the things that you have learned? Do you share your philosophies with them, or do you just live your walk?
I try to share my knowledge and my philosophies to as many people as possible. And nowadays, people live in different communities or different groups. It's just like we are separated more and more by technology, and we don't watch the same media anymore. So what I do is that I try to insinuate the messages into different groups of people, so that people from different perspectives can accept certain messages that tailor to their concepts or perspectives. So I do live my life as example to try to bring the messages out to as many people as possible.
I think that's just beautiful. I mean, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to live our beliefs. And that way people, and if somebody's interested, if somebody sees what you're living, they tend to go, "Oh, well, I need to know more about that." And then you have an opportunity to explain to them why you're different. I think that's cool.
Yeah, especially I was an immigrant. I came here at the age of 15. I went to high school, went to UC Berkeley, and I studied in London and Madrid. I speak Spanish and also translated the book from German to English. And I became a lawyer just 2 years ago. So I keep learning and keep absorbing knowledge, the knowledge that can help more and more people. So this is how I live my life, by like educating myself, by absorbing as much knowledge as possible and investing in myself, and then by helping others.
See, that's beautiful because you're helping you to help others. That's cool.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you.
I had nothing to do with that. I mean, that's just pretty interesting. And it's, I mean, it really is. It's such an important way to, you're spreading the benefit of that just by being an example. I love that.
Yes.
I mean,
And I
to me,
hope I
that's
can,
great.
yes, and I hope I can motivate and inspire others. A lot of Chinese people who came here and a lot of Japanese and Korean people who came here, they actually do similar things. It's just that I think there's more into having financial freedom. There's a spiritual side of everything, and there's more into accumulating material wealth because we really cannot take away anything material after we pass or when we pass. Napoleon conquered a vast territory of land, but he couldn't take away anything when he died. So what we can take away is the spiritual knowledge and spiritual lessons through our interactions with others in daily life.
And what a much better way to be spending your time if you're going to be sitting somewhere contemplating what you lived than to have been a positive in somebody's life or in the life of people that you love, or just, my dad told me that I was much too big of a Pollyanna to survive in this world. Do you know what that means? It's
No.
too much, way too, it's basically naive and expecting everything to go well just because, that's how you're living, and to expect people to be like me and to try to, you know, I trusted too much. I expected too much. I believed in people without cause. That was his take on that. And I was like, well, I have found that people will live up to what you expect of them in large part. And they will reflect back to you what you're putting out in large part. There's always an exception, always an exception. But it's really important, I think, to do that. And
Mm.
that was before I had heard about the book. So I started out that way and got in trouble with my dad. So there's that. It was funny. But a lot of the stuff, out of curiosity, and because y'all would have moved in the same circles to a degree, did you know Eric von Däniken?
Yes, I know his
Did
work.
you have the opportunity to have conversations with him?
No, I did not have the opportunity, unfortunately.
He 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 probably wishes he had been able to do that, trust me. But I think that because a lot of what is in the book, he saw. He saw before people were traveling, really comfortably traveling. But he saw, he was in the base of the Great Pyramid. There, in the Queen's chamber that was still sealed, they found a way to see inside of it without doing damage or anything. But there he was in to a Techuan before people were there. He lived to be able to go and learn these things, not unlike you, to see and learn and to share things like that. And I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall during one of y'all's conversations if y'all were ever able to have one. I think that would have been such an interesting day. So, but because I think he lived a lot like that. I don't know about his I don't know his personality as far as interaction with the average person. I do know that he was one of the first true adventurers that I got to listen to, and I did every chance I could get. And I think that when it comes to like the UFO side of things, it's just it's interesting because what he saw in his journeys made him believe in the UFO phenomenon. And I think probably that made a big difference for an awful lot of people. Just an awful lot of people with his writing and the way that he expected to always find something special. You know, he didn't go to these places just to go. He went because he had read about them, learned about them, understood that there were special things about the places that he wanted to go to. And he would, from the time he was 17, he would work and make the money to travel and go somewhere and learn about it and then go home and work some more to be able to go to the next place. And I think sometimes in our society, people start looking at the shiny objects. I must have a bigger TV. I must have a better car that, I need an L on that or whatever, so that I'm driving something a little better than my neighbor. There's a lot of competitiveness in our society and even competitiveness with ourselves. We've got to be better than what we are because, we put that on ourselves. And I think that we forget the beauty of learning, just to learn, not to get a degree, not to, get a raise, not to do anything else, but to improve ourselves or satisfy the curiosity that we have. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important for us to satisfy our curiosity and also to learn and invest in ourselves because, I was a very curious person. I'm still very curious.
You are still very curious. You're still learning.
I'm still learning. I want to know everything possible. So actually my life motto is learn from the best and know everything there is to know. So I just want to get as much information and knowledge as possible. This is why I found this book to be extremely interesting and fascinating because it actually answered all the questions I had in my mind when I was young, and it explained everything about life, about the purpose of life, about reincarnation, about destiny and like predestination and also free will. And there are a lot of things explained in the book that can open people's eyes and very different perspective. So I just cannot put more encouragement into my mind into reading this book because it's, even though it only has about 170 pages or so, it's a very thick book, meaning that it's very dense. It's very dense in the sense that it has a lot of information about our ancient past, about how we can elevate ourselves, how we can have financial freedom, how we can improve our health, how we can improve our relationship with our family members, with our loved ones. So it has all the solutions that one can think of or one needs. So this is a very unique book.
Well, it's it definitely covers all the bases, doesn't it?
Yeah. About I'm
sorry, go ahead.
About ancient civilizations, ancient aliens, about different religions, the Old Testament and the New Testament, about where we all came from, where the Hebrews came from originally, why Jewish people are different, so it's so unique, why certain things happen, and there are a lot of specific information that people can verify. So it's very interesting.
Well, like the tomb of Jesus.
Yes.
I mean, I find that fascinating because nobody, I've never heard of anybody else talk about that. And I find that sad, really. It should be there.
Yeah.
But what, I wanted to ask you something else, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to go a little bit, changing the topic a little bit. But I know that you've got your interest in UFOs, and I know that we have our historic big deal cases. We've got, like UFOs over the White House back in the day. We've got, Roswell. We've got, oh my gosh, we've got so many. But what are some of the cases that caught your eye, like cases in China, and what's the Chinese culture relevant to those? Is there censorship? Are they something that it's safe to talk about? What did you have a UFO experience that drew you into this when you lived in China? Or because it doesn't seem like that would be something that would be a good topic of conversation just in general grocery store chit chat.
Well, the Chinese government was fairly open to this topic in the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s. Back then, when I was an elementary school student in the 1980s, there was a very, very popular magazine called the UFO Explorer, the UFO magazine. So a lot of like a young boy like myself was drawn into such topics. And we, along with my classmates, always talked about such and such, the ETs, UFO, the Bermuda Triangle. And if you remember, during the 1990s or 1980s, people were talking about the end of the world being 1999,
Oh, yes.
in July 1999. That didn't happen. But at that time, I was a little bit scared about the end of the world. So I was thinking I would go to the Bermuda Triangle, and then I would disappear and go into a tunnel or something like that. And
Yes.
then when everyone else dies, I can come back. So that's my kind of logic or
Well, it was a plan.
that's the
And
plan.
it was a plan.
Yes.
It was better than my plan, which was write it out, But
Yeah.
go to
So-
the beach and wait and see what happens.
Right. So we were talking about how to save ourselves during the end of the world. And so we were kind of discussing whether the ETs and UFOs could save us at the end. So at that time, people were really open in talking about such topics. So that's where my interest came from. But then in the 2000s, there was the kind of a religious movement called the Falun Gong that the government was very scared of. So that's why they cracked down on all religious organizations and issues related to the paranormal, because the Falun Gong was talking about using the inner energy to heal yourself. And they had a specific form of practice that can really make someone to accumulate more energy. And it's actually been quite effective for a lot of people. But the government was cracking down on them because they had a mass protest in front of Tiananmen Square. And so that's when everything stopped, and the media stopped talking about that. But before that happened, in the 1990s, there were several UFO cases that were reported by the official media of China, the government media. One of the most well-known was the Phoenix Mountain incident that occurred in the late 1990s. A farmer in the northeastern part of China had an encounter with the ET, and they had several conversations, and the ETs, one of the ETs impregnated actually took his sperm and then got pregnant. And then he was told that a baby was going to be born on their planet, which is a satellite of Jupiter. And they showed him a holographic image of Earth, telling him that if we don't pay attention to the environment, we're going to destroy ourselves. They showed him where the natural resources were located in the holographic like presentation, like where the coals were and where the natural gas were, and things like that. So that's one of the interesting phenomena reported by the official media of China.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Well, where did that go from there?
And then, so they had a lot of investigators to visit that part of China to talk to the ET contactee. They performed the polygraph exam, the lie detector test, and psychological exam on him. And then the result was that he wasn't lying and he didn't have any psychological issues. And they did a lot of other tests on him. And then a lot of people were interested in his stories, but then they couldn't make any sense of it because it's so far stretched from the perceptions of the regular people. So even though they had a lot of investigations and researchers, they did not have any conclusions on that ET contactee. So the official media stopped there. And then there were a lot of sightings too that were reported by the official media, like the UFO, UAP sightings. And there were no explanations given by the government because they couldn't explain anything like that. So that's the sightings or stories reported by the official media of China.
What about the unofficial channels?
There were a lot of private investigations going on at that time, and there are also a lot of private investigations going on nowadays. They were just under the radar of the Chinese government. For example, there's a private researcher, Mr. Zhang, who investigated the Roswell of China, in which a UFO crashed in a city that's about 4 hours away from Beijing, the capital of China. And then the Chinese military retrieved the crashed vehicle, as well as a corpse of an ET, as well as a ET who didn't die. But according to the researcher, the private researcher, the military took the crashed vehicle and the ETs, and then there was nothing heard from them anymore. So
Just like this one.
yeah, just like ours, yes.
You know, is there a big? I know the government's different, and I know that the government is stricter or more strict. Is there conversation about that still today?
In the 1990s or 2000s, people were mostly interested in earning a lot of money, making more money and more money. So only like a small group of people were interested in UFO and paranormal research in China. And after the crackdown of the government, fewer and fewer people were involved in the research and investigations. Nowadays, the government discourages people in going to this field. So not a lot of people tend to want to talk about this because for the fear of the government and also for like more important things such as making a living or something like that.
Being able to make a living would be good too, right?
Yeah.
But when when you had mentioned Tiananmen, and to me that's such a huge thing because that is my era of watching that happen. Um, it looks a lot like some of the 1960s issues that we had here.
Yeah.
And the crackdown that we had here didn't last very well because Americans do demand freedom, and sometimes to the consternation of our government. But it's a lot, it's not as different as I would like for it to be, but it is very different just from what I had friends who were from China who immigrated here and conversations ensued and stuff like that. But it's really interesting because I would never have thought that there would be a Roswell incident that could be kept so quiet. And I mean, I've done what I'm doing here with you for 10 years. And I've never talked with anyone and learned that there was a Chinese Roswell. So this has already been a great conversation, and we still have an hour. But it just really is fascinating that this is apparently a universal, well, an earth-wide thing. It just does blow my mind because we're always told that, well, but that's just here and there's so few incidents and how on earth can this possibly be true and da 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 da. But my second time in Scotland, I went to the Scottish UFO conference, paranormal and UFO conference, and it was very small. It was in Glasgow, but I met people that I had known before I got there. I knew some of the stuff that was going to be talked about. And to me, that's fascinating. And we have King Friday in chat who says retired military law enforcement has a non-disclosure story about an incident, in the late 80s. And then he said a lot of countries have Roswell incidents, but they don't get talked about. That should be, maybe it's because Stanton Friedman was a friend of mine and he was the first civilian Roswell investigator, and I got to learn a lot because we were friends and we would talk. But I don't feel like this information, which is a global phenomenon, is shared very well. Because I think if it was, there would be more people who believed that this was a real thing. Because there's a lot of people that, will poo-poo you to high heaven. Oh no, honey, that's not real. How can you believe that? Well, because it's real. There's so much. And every culture, I'm sure probably every culture does have a history of this. And King Friday is welcome to pop in there and say where, but it's just a fascinating thing to me that this is not a universal conversation, a global conversation. Are that many governments threatened by it?
I do think that it has a lot of implications to the current technologies that we use. For example, if you can reverse engineer the crashed vehicles, then a lot of the oil companies are going to go bankrupt if they know that there's a more efficient form of energy that people can use. A lot of their shareholders are going to be in trouble. And a lot of the governments are going to be in trouble because they depend and rely on the tax revenues from the sales of gasolines or oils. So it's actually like a chain reaction that's going to kind of disrupt a lot of industries and the governments. So this is the reason why a lot of the governments are not disclosing this, mostly for financial and military implications. So I think, however, there's a good news is that um, the book Theory of Prophecy is very popular in China
Yes.
as a science fiction, not as a nonfiction, as a science fiction. So
Yes.
people gradually are learning about the possibility of the existence and contacts by the ETs from ancient times. And so I think this is like a starting point. People read it as a science fiction, and then some of them realize that, oh, wait a second, everything, every detail in the book can be checked out, can be verified. This must be something real. So they are gradually waking up. And I think China is leading the US on this point because they actually are learning from the ETs who are more advanced than the ETs that were on the crashed UFO vehicles in Roswell.
Well, ostensibly, only one of them survived. So,
Yeah. I mean, in the sense that there are different kinds of ETs. The ETs whose vehicles crashed are not that advanced because their spacecraft crashed.
right.
But the Chinese people are learning from the ETs whose spacecraft never crashed and will never crash. So they're learning actually more from the more advanced ETs, the ETs mentioned in the book Theory of Prophecy. Even though the book is published as a science fiction, a lot of people are reading it because not many books of this kind are published in China. So it actually feels like a vacuum. Like people just love this book. It's a bestseller in China, even
Yeah.
among the official media.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
Cool, but bizarre. Because when you try to talk about it with people here, they're just like, the what? Okay. But well, people will be talking about it now. But I'm so excited. Um, and to King Friday in our chat room, I did not mean to try to sound like I was putting you on the spot. I apologize. I did not know that you were still under your non-disclosure. So sorry about that. But he says that our jump in technology alone in a short time is a telltale sign, and that has been true since we started actually taking off, I think. And it's really interesting to me because I just we keep advancing so quickly. We haven't taken quite the jump that we took in the 60s. That was huge. And there's been like computer technology, medical things, and things of that nature that I think are as a result of research on what we've gotten. But it just seems like people are so unaware of the fact that we didn't make all of this stuff. This is not something that we are known to do. We've had so many leaps in the past century and really by decade. And you mentioned Y2K, going through Y2K. That was actually very frightening for so many people. It was a end times kind of a feeling. And I just was like, well, what are you going to do? You can't fix it. I mean, you don't know. But it turns out we did not blow up, die, and go away. So that's a good thing. But the the book is such a good tool. I am really looking forward to your lecture. I have to tell you, I'm very excited about that. But you've got I don't know how to say his name. Michael Desmarquet. Is that
French Michel
yes?
de Marquet.
Okay, Michelle. But he was an abductee.
Yes, he was an abductee in 1987.
I don't know that name. Can you tell me about him?
Well, he was a landscaper in Cairns, Queensland, Australia. So one day he woke up suddenly in the middle of the night and he walked outside of his house and he was lifted up to the middle of the air where he saw a beautiful, gigantic ET being 10 foot tall, telling him that they were going to have a journey together to their planet for 9 days. And then he was brought into their spacecraft, which is a spherical shape aircraft or spacecraft. They began their journey. They stopped at the planet and saw a nuclear holocaust, aftermath of nuclear holocaust. And then they reached their destination, which is a very beautiful planet, just like a paradise. Everything is so perfect, surrounded by a golden mist. So he calls the planet the Golden Planet. The people there are really compassionate, friendly, and loving people. And the gravity on the planet is smaller, lighter on Earth. So he had to be careful when moving around. Also, the planet has a lot of colors and lights. So he had to wear like a facial mask, like sunglasses, to filter out the strong lights and colors. And then he was told about the history of Earth, where we all came from. We all came from different planets. We did not evolve from apes at all. And we had several great resets in the history of mankind on Earth. That means we all have had very successful ancient civilizations, which built the Great Pyramid of Egypt and the statues on Easter Island, as well as some of the statues in Latin America and also parts of Asia, in which we still have trouble building those, even using modern technology. So he was told about how they visited Earth from time to time, and why certain groups of people in ancient times saw them as gods or goddesses, like people in India. So when you see like people in India, they have pictures of gods or multiple gods and goddesses appearing like angels and appearing like non-gender-like.
Yes.
So the people from Cuba, that planet, are hermaphrodites, meaning that they have both male and female sexual organs. So they tell us that they were involved in some of the historical events that occurred on Earth in our ancient past that were recorded by the ancient scriptures in the Bible. When you think about this, you can imagine like when the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, were destroyed, like who really caused it? Like who really did it? And when you think about Exodus, Moses leading the Hebrews out of Egypt, like who really parted the sea for Moses? Who really gave the manna for the Hebrews to eat when they wandered in the desert? So a lot of questions can be answered. And also, what was the Star of Bethlehem when Jesus was born? If we look at the Star of Bethlehem nowadays, we will shout each other, "Oh, it's a UFO, UAP in the sky."
Yes.
So a lot of questions can be answered. And in fact, according to this book, The UFO Prophecy, or the Golden Planet, they have been involved in our ancient past by helping us to grow spiritually. For example, when they destroyed the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, it's not just about sodomy. It's because the people in the two cities behaved so evilly, like they punished the people who were compassionate. For example, according to the Jewish Torah, the Jewish scriptures, a young girl, gave food to a beggar on the street, and the girl was punished using very like heartbreaking tortures techniques. So this is why she shouted and cried out to Lord, to God, and this is why when they couldn't find a single righteous person in the two cities,
Yes.
they destroyed the two cities. And when you have a malignant tumor that's going to spread out to the rest of your body, the best way is to remove it surgically. So this is what they did, because they were setting a very bad example to the people who were in contact of them. So this is why they were actually helping us from time to time. So that during Exodus, they were helping the Hebrews out of the evil rules of the ancient pharaohs of Egypt, because the pharaohs of Egypt were suppressing the spiritual development of the Hebrews. Speaking of the Hebrews, I'd like to ask several questions. Have you ever thought about why the Jewish people are so unique? Like if you look at the statistics, Jewish people only account for about 0.2% of world population.
Yes.
Yet they account for 22% of all the Nobel Prize winners on Earth. And if you look at the business leaders and the scientists and the athletes and the Nobel Prize, like the people, the lawyers and the doctors, a lot of them are Jewish people. Like they excel statistically significantly from the rest of us. There's a reason for that.
What?
And if you read the book The Uber Prophecy, it explains perfectly why they were the chosen people. So when I was reading the Bible, when I was in a Christian church in Los Angeles, I kept asking the Chinese pastors or the non-Chinese pastors, why did they choose the Hebrews? Why they were the chosen people, not the Chinese, not the Africans, not the Caucasians in Europe. Why the Hebrew people? Like why being such a unique group of people that they were chosen? Like no one asks this kind of questions. I was asking this kind of question because I was jealous.
Did you get answers?
The pastors never gave the answers. The
Really?
Chinese pastors didn't know. They kind of gave the answers, kind of saying, "Oh, this is what the Lord chose. This is why they did that," but not to my satisfaction. I was very curious what's the uniqueness of the Jewish people, the Hebrews, that they chose them. And the non-Chinese pastors didn't really satisfy me either. But the book Theoba of Prophecy explains it perfectly in a very reasonable manner, in a very logical fashion.
How logical is it?
Extremely logical. It turns out that we all came from different planets originally. The Chinese, the yellows, the blacks, the Caucasians, the ancestors of the Polynesians and the Hebrews, all came from different people, different planets. But there are, according to the book Theoba of Prophecy, there are different categories of planets in the universe.
Okay.
Earth is a category 1 planet, the most basic or the low category, the lowest category. And the Chinese, the yellows, the blacks, the Caucasians, and the ancestors of the Polynesians all came from category 1 planet originally. But the Hebrews did not. They came here from a category 3 planet by accident. So they were having a lot of issues with the people, the nomads in the Middle East. So they crashed in a place in southern Russia, and some Hebrews survived, and they migrated to the south, to where the Middle East is, and because of the weather, they crashed in the wintertime, and it's very cold.
I would have migrated too.
Yes, so they moved south. So they survived by eating honey and the local food, but they had a lot of difficult time with the local people, the nomads, the people who envied about the Jewish women, the Hebrew women. So they wanted the locals in the Middle East wanted to rape the the Hebrew women. So this is why they had to defend themselves, having their like high technology. They had a weapon just like a laser. So they killed the people who were trying to rape their women. So they had conflicts with the locals from the very beginning. So they had a very unique culture and language, and they did not mix with the locals and the rest of the people on Earth. So this is why, if you look at the Orthodox Jews, they still are a very pure race. They did not intermarry with others. So the book explains like the from the very beginning, like what really happened, why the Jewish people were kind of persecuted by throughout history, because they were actually kind of came here by accident.
You would think that would have settled down somewhat after all this time, that there would have been some assimilation between the cultures.
Well, not
But
really.
it's an ongoing, I mean, this has been a so many generations thing. So it makes as much sense as anything else I've heard for why there is that animosity. I've never understood that myself.
You know, Michel Desmarquet, the author, asked the Theobans if the Theobans are so technologically and spiritually evolved and advanced, why didn't they just take the Hebrews back to their original planet, where they came from? And the answer he was given was that they thought that the Hebrews were going to intermarry with other groups of people, so that they would become more and more like the rest of us. But they kind of didn't expect that the Jewish people kept their race pure. So they really didn't intermarry with the rest of the people on Earth. So this is why there's so much they're having so much animosity against Jewish people.
Well, I'm not sure what I think about that. I'm going to have to ponder that.
Okay.
But, it really is, and it is traditional hatred. I mean, it's like so deep that it's just not even negotiable.
Yeah.
And we saw that when all those young people and other innocents were taken from on October 7th. It's just one of those things that there is no, that's the most logical reason I've heard for this hatred.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, because I've never understood it. I don't, like I said, my dad used to tell me not to be such a Pollyanna, but I don't understand hatred of that level. And I'm glad I don't. I don't think I would want to. But it's just so seriously wrong, the stuff that goes on with that, because it's it never stops.
Yeah, one thing I like to bring up is that we, the people here on Earth, as well as people on different planets, the ETs, including the Hebrews, who are still living on their planet Hebra, and including the Jewish people here on Earth nowadays, are all created by the same Creator.
Yes.
So we are all connected to the same Creator through our higher selves.
Yes.
So this is why we should really love one another, just follow the teachings of Christ,
Yes.
because we all came from the same Spirit, the same Creator, the same God. And I actually wrote an article about the uniqueness of Jewish people that I sent you on private chat. And I just want to bring everyone together, not just the Jewish people in the world, but also the Chinese, the Blacks in Africa, and the Caucasians in Africa, and everyone else in Russia, in Japan, in India, in Japan, in Australia, in Latin America. Like all people in the world should come together as one
Yes.
human being to work towards our goal, which is to elevate our spirituality. And I think through that we can create a very good future.
I share that opinion. And, you know, there's that Pollyanna in me again, but I really do share that because hatred is taught, just like kindness is taught. And there's it's so important just to, I really believe in do no harm and do good wherever you can. And that makes a balance, you know, and I really kind of am a Pollyanna, I guess, but it's just the better way to be. It really is. And you cannot advance when you have hatred in your heart.
That's right.
Because the behaviors associated with that hatred bring you back. They don't allow the advancement. Even if you kill, it's like with the Nazis, you know, you kill people, they did their best to eradicate an entire race of people. And it didn't work. Because there was protection there. It should have worked. I mean, they were adamant and they did a really good job trying, but it didn't work because there are protections in place. I feel like because there are protections in place. So it's one of those things that, you know, it's going to make your lecture so interesting.
let me share you two things from the book that really amazes me. Is that in the book, it specifically tells us that they, the ETs from Cuba, were directly involved in preventing Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. And I did some research on that. At that time, Germany was more ahead of the US scientists in developing or researching on the atomic bomb. There was a German scientist, a physicist called Dr. Heisenberg. And he was the father for Germany to develop the bomb. But for some strange reason, he made a stupid mistake, and his report was read by Hitler. That made Hitler believe that Germany did not have enough resources, plutonium, to make the bomb. That's why Hitler gave out the plan. So this specific detail tells us that there was a kind of intervention from the ETs helping the Jewish people, preventing Germany from deploying or developing the bomb. And also they actually were indirectly helping the American scientists in developing the bomb and also in deploying the bomb in Japan, ending the war much earlier than it would have been otherwise, saving millions of lives. So they actually sided with the American government at that time because they believed that the Americans were more sincere in believing individual liberty and at that time. So this is something that I think everyone should take note, that the ETs intervene from time to time. But at the same time, the book also tells us that they never serve the meal on a plate, meaning that they inform us, they tell us that we should not expect them to intervene all the time. God helps those who help themselves. So if you're smart, and if you are trying to teach your child to solve a mathematical problem, you just wouldn't give him the answer directly. You would tell your son, like, this is the way you should explore in solving this problem. And then he would do his own research and try to solve the problem himself so that he can learn. Similarly, the ETs just give us general concepts and principles, telling us we should develop our spirituality so that we can learn from our mistakes. We should not expect the ETs to help us all the time. So this is why we have a lot of challenges we have to solve ourselves.
Well, we've had tests that we failed epically, right? So there's that. But I really think you're probably going to laugh at this, but I feel like we had an opportunity for our governments to come clean on ETs, and that was Orson Welles' War of the Worlds show, because it was all about that. They're here. There's this. People were jumping out of buildings. People died. I mean, obviously, our society was not ready for that kind of information at that point. And of course, they made it the most horrible scenario, too. But I really felt like that was a trial balloon for would people be ready to accept ETs being here. And in no shape, form, or fashion were they ready to have that conversation. And that's, I think, is why our government has been terrified for us to have that knowledge ever since. I think that hell itself would freeze over before they would acknowledge that there are ETs here. I think they're going to have to be forced to do that. And it's not a bad thing that they're here.
Right. I mean,
and I think they walk amongst us.
Yeah, they do. They do. That's for sure. But people need to realize there are different kinds of ETs. And I believe in learning from the best. So learning from masters will be a more efficient way to progressing ourselves. So I wouldn't really learn from the grace in which the US government has been reverse engineering their technologies, because their spacecraft crashed. You're learning from the technologies that really crashed on Earth.
And it's so obvious. And, and people, I mean, I feel like it's so obvious. We did not make these aviation advances on our own. I mean, we did not. It's just amazing. And you had talked about the rocket scientists and nuclear physicists and people after the world wars. And I live in Birmingham, Alabama, down below Huntsville, where everybody is a rocket scientist. I mean, there is everybody there. And it's really funny because I'm a member of the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies, and I am the least educated person in that group. I mean, it's just so crazy because they're all geniuses. They're like you. They have a degree in everything, and they are just, they're so smart and so interesting, and they change the world, and they are looking for scientific proof of UFOs. And I'm like, well, just look up because they're out there. I mean, you see them on occasion when I don't know if they slip up or if they choose to show themselves. I'm not sure what the motivation is with that. But would you agree that they are not hiding behind things that they like hide in plain sight?
Well, there are different kinds of ETs. I mean, the Greys are not really. I think the government is hiding something, but the ETs themselves don't necessarily hide themselves
Okay.
on purpose. They're,
Yeah.
they're like the Thebans, they don't hide themselves. They get in touch with us from time to time. If you read the book of Enoch, you're going to see that they actually took Enoch away, the book of Enoch. And I think people who still don't believe in the UFOs or UAPs, they should, especially in Alabama, they should search Tim Taylor. I don't know if you know him, but he's a great guy, and
Yeah.
he knows a lot. Yeah.
So will you say his name again?
Tim Taylor.
Oh, yes. Yes. I tell you, Travis Taylor.
Travis Taylor is another person. I mean, Travis Taylor is but Tim Taylor is another kind of NASA person, NASA scientist who was documented in the book American Cosmic, and that book actually reveals a lot of incidents in which will enlighten a lot of people, non-believers.
Well, I will have to get you to give me the information on that so that I can read it and become more educated on that. And my lighting changed. Yes, I'm okay. Nothing exploded. But I am always amazed, really, by the things that I didn't know. And so far, I am loving our conversation. So thank you so much. But I know that you're going to be talking about, oops, wrong button. I know that you're going to be talking about a lot of different things when you're at the Ozark Mountain UFO conference. And I'm just so excited that I'm going to get to meet you and get to hear your lecture. But, we've actually covered a good many of your topics, but I wanted to hear more if that's okay. But I wanted to hear more about your pyramid ideas because, like I said, I heard Eric talk about that. Eric McDonough talk about his experience in the pyramids so much. And what are some of the topics relevant to the pyramids that you're going to be covering in your discussion?
According to the ETs, the pyramid is actually an energy center that captures cosmic and terrestrial energies, so that the ancient pharaohs actually used the pyramid to communicate with people on different planets and also to make rain, because they actually can project energy from the top of the pyramid into space. And it was actually built by a very wise person called Thoth in 17,000 years ago. And he was actually from Atlantis. And he had the knowledge to use anti-gravitational technologies and ultrasonic vibratory systems, so that he was able to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. And that's actually the same technology that they used to build the statues on Easter Island. So that was the knowledge that was lost after the disappearance of Atlantis, and also after the sunken of the continent of Lemuria about 14,500 years ago. So we had very flourishing, technologically advanced ancient civilizations on Lemuria, which was in the Pacific Ocean, and also Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean. And that's where pyramid came from, actually how it was built.
Okay. Well, what do you think about the ground penetrating radar that they're using with
Yes.
under the pyramids? I mean, that would support that theory.
Yes, that's the subterranean structures beneath the pyramid that capture terrestrial energies. So the book is very, very interesting because, Theory about Prophecy intentionally kind of mentioned about terrestrial energies, not just the cosmic energies, but also terrestrial energies. So that's the uniqueness about the book. You have to read it in detail several times in order to catch everything. Yeah.
Well, I just think that's so cool because when you were describing that, and I'm sitting there thinking, I probably got this glazed look on my face for a minute because I'm thinking about the imaging that I'm seeing from this radar, right? The LiDAR. And I'm like, that's exactly what those are. They're catchment for energy. And that matches. So, well, do you think that at some point we will be able to find, well, like the Library of Alexandria, all these things that are supposed to be somewhere here?
Yes.
That would be a way to help us understand more our history, our not just culturally history, but the spiritual teachings, the information to help us understand the ancient civilizations and how these type of things would help us move more into a better understanding of each other and yes, King Friday, but all the things that if we just had that base knowledge, I feel like we would maybe find a better way to flow together to understand that we have to have each other. And I do feel like that's true. We're all integral parts of the same society, even if we don't everybody doesn't like to admit that. So it would be so much easier if we just had a better understanding of each other.
Yeah. I think this book is very unique that it gives people hope and motivation to follow the footsteps of Gandhi in India and Dr. Martin Luther King in organizing themselves or ourselves, motivating ourselves through nonviolent resistance, empowering ourselves with the right knowledge to make such decisions. And you mentioned about knowledge from ancient civilizations. Yes, that's going to be beneath the Sphinx, because there are 3 chambers according to the author, Michel Desmarquet. there are 3 chambers beneath the Sphinx. And when we're ready spiritually, they can be opened. Once they're opened, everything will be known because it contains ancient knowledge and technologies and civilizations and knowledge about ancient civilization and history of the such ancient civilizations that are going to enlighten us for a better future. However, if we are not ready, they will not be opened because it contains technologies that are going to destroy ourselves, just like fire. It can be used beneficially for good, but can also hurt us or damage us. So this is why only when we are spiritually ready can they be opened.
That's going to be a while.
Well, I hope it's going to happen in the next few years or a few decades.
I hope it would be really nice if we all got our acts together and came together as a society. Yeah, you would think that being earthlings would be unifying as opposed to, you start with home and then you move to out and out and out, and then you get to that and you're all one. But do you feel like, just a personal opinion, do you feel like it would take something like, even if it were a false flag, a planetary invasion, to make us unify as a culture? Or do you think that that would make the crazies crazier? I mean, how do you get to that?
I think if there were going to be a false flag operation pretending that there's going to be a alien invasion, I think it's going to get crazier and crazier because as that group who started this false flag operation is going to benefit to exert more control on the people. And people should realize that they have the power and the free will to make great changes, and that the ETs are not going to invade us because if they really want to, they would have done that long time ago. They wouldn't wait to now. And I think if you really look at the landing on the moon, a lot of people wonder why we have not been back to the moon, even though in the last 50 years or so, the technology is more advanced and the cost is lower. But why we haven't been to the moon? There's always this talk getting more funding from the government, but when we have a certain date set, it's going to be postponed. It's going to be delayed into a date in the future. Kept delaying. There's a reason for that because we've been warned off from the moon. We are not ready to really explore the solar system to land on a different planet because the ETs believe that we're going to contaminate the planet that we're going to land on. So the ETs told the astronauts, don't come again. So this is why we have not been back to the moon in the last 50 years or so. And we are not going to, despite what
we have rovers on Mars. We're sending them to, where is it, Venus that we're sending them to? I mean, we're actually looking at other planets. We haven't even been to the back of the moon. I mean,
the people.
Because, and I'm sorry, I have a lot of friends that do all these ancient alien things, and they're like, well, there's structures on the back of the moon, and there's this and there's that, and and then you talk to the people that think that the moon is hollow and that it rang like a bell when they drop some. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. But I agree. And we got a comment that said, I think we do go to the moon. It's not public information. But I agree. We were probably told adamantly, no, or we would be there. I mean, they were talking about building housing and all these other things that they were going to have people off planet and stuff. And that has not been that long ago. So I think it was definitely turned into a no-go location.
There are ET bases on the far side of the moon, that's for sure, because it's talked in the book The Theoba Prophecy, confirming that there are artificial structures on the far side, on the back side of the moon, and it actually explains why they built them and when they built them and for what purposes is all in the book. And I was trying to allude that if they prevent us from going to the moon because we are not ready, then by the same token, they're going to prevent other ETs who are not ready to come to Earth to be in contact with us. So they're not going to have the ETs who want to invade us to be in contact with us. So there's not going to be any invasions from the ETs or alien invasions in the future.
Yeah. It's just it's so exasperating to feel like we're on the cusp of this knowledge. And yet it's so far away. It's just a very annoying thing. I'm a person that likes the opportunity to get an answer to a question. And so I just keep trying to educate myself as I go. I'm 64. I still have time to learn things. My husband's like, that's new. And I'm like, well, heck yeah, it's new. I don't know everything yet. Working on it. So
you don't look like 64.
Oh, thank you. But really, and this is a bad day. This is, a hustle and bustle to get to the computer day. But I know that you had some thoughts, some reincarnation too, and we've got a little bit more time, but can you tell me about that? I mean, I know I'm going to hear your lecture soon, but other people may not be able to get there, so.
Right. I mean, in the lecture, I can elaborate a little bit more than what I say here, because there are a lot of details that I can present. So what happens is that we have our physical body, and we also have our astral body. When we pass, we give up our physical body. Our astral body will leave our physical body. And then during this time, there's going to be a life review process. Everything that happened from the moment we were born to the moment that we die is going to be shown to us like a holographic film, like a movie. The difference is that not only we are able to see everything happened, we're also able to feel and experience and to feel the pains of the people we caused harm to, and also the appreciation and happiness when we did something good to others. And then we are going to evaluate how we did in our lifetime. It's like an omnipotent feeling and experience. So this is why some people say there's going to be like a judgment day. Yes, there's going to be a judgment day. It's going to be yourself evaluating yourself. But because you're connected to the source, the creator, it's also equivalent to God judging you. But in essence, you're judging yourself. You're evaluating yourself. And then from that moment on, in 3 days' time, 81% of the electrons of your astral body will go to your higher self. So this is why, like, Christ resurrected after 3 days. And this is why in Tibetan culture, the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for at least 3 days because the cycle has not been completed yet. And this is why in Chinese culture, when a person dies, you're not to bury that person for at least 3 days because the person might come back. So that's in Chinese culture. So what about the other 19% of the electrons? They will remain in nature until the person reincarnates or until they're recycled by nature. But because of static forces and energy, they resemble the appearance of the person who just passed. And because electrons have memories, they frequently haunt the places they loved or hated. And some people can see them, and some people can see ghosts. And then for the 81% of electrons that go to the higher self, they will remain there until it's time for them to reincarnate. And then they will contemplate what kind of spiritual lessons to learn in their next life. And the next life, the important events of their future life will be shown to them, the critical events. And they can decide whether to reincarnate or not. When they accept that kind of life to the family they're going to reincarnate to, the memories are erased. So this is why most people don't remember their past lives, but some people do. Like the children, researched by Dr. Ian Stevenson and people like that. Yeah.
And King Friday says, we used to bury the dead with a bell, and that hasn't been that long ago. That there would be a bell with a string tied to it, so that if somebody came back, they could let someone know to get me out of here, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that has not been that long ago. So that's interesting that he put that in there, because I was thinking similar. But it's really interesting, because the concept of coming back it seems to be primarily universal. I mean, there are a few outliers and stuff that, well, you're just done. See ya. We got somebody coming in behind you. But, it's just kind of we don't just stop. I don't feel like we just stop either. So I think it's going to be exciting. I do hope that we get some of our knowledge back. I do not want to start over and make the same mistakes I have made this time around. So that would be good. Good to have that.
Yeah.
But I also, because, in Buddhism, you take those lessons with you, and you do work to improve on where you left off.
Yeah.
And,
And additionally, I'd like to add one point, is that we go through different reincarnations. Mm-hmm. And according to the ETs, different reincarnations are just like different positions on a wheel. What goes up has to come down. So we have to experience everything, every role. Like we have to experience being the wealthiest person in the world. We have to experience being a beggar on a street. We have to experience being a king or a queen of a country. We have to experience being like a goldsmith somewhere, or someone who was the. Yeah, we have to experience everything. If you read a lot of research on reincarnation, and especially the book The UFO Prophecy, you're going to see that we only use our physical body as a tool to improve our spirituality. The sculpture that we use the tool to make is just like our spirit. And the tools that we use to make a sculpture are just like our physical body. So we only use it to elevate our spiritual development.
As we should.
Yeah.
So, we should be doing that while we're here too. And sometimes we forget that. I mean, it's kind of what our job is. I think, hey, Tom McNicholas, we have Tom McNicholas in the chat room, and he agrees with you totally, by the way. But I am just enjoying you so much. So thank you. And you're, I'm going to give people your website so that they can get in touch with you. But it is https://. But it's chinasong.org. And you can go and you can just hit another backslash on that website, and you can go to the Tiabo.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an easier way to do that. Just go to theobaprophecy.com and it'll direct you to that website you just mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah. I just put the new domain name, so that's fine.
I'm just getting tongue-tied trying to read that. That's so funny. But usually I'm much better at that. But I am just so glad that you have been here tonight because, I have been fascinated by having a chance to discuss the book because that is something, like I said, it's been years since I spoke with anybody that would talk about this book. And so when I saw the information on you for the conference, I'm like, ooh, that would be a really good conversation. So, and even though I had a glitch, I appreciate so much you being here because it's mattered. This has been a great conversation for me. And I know our listeners have heard it and enjoyed it. And we will be in rebroadcast all over the place, YouTube's, and it'll be on Spotify in an audio version. And I just thank you. And conference dates, that would be, I just happen to have them right here because I fly April 8th. The conference is from the 9th through 9th through the 12th. And this conference is the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, which is in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And I have loved every time I've gotten to go. It's interesting. It's fun. You'll have great speakers like Dr. Samuel here, and who is a recent member of the bar, hence the Esquire there with his name. So if you can get there, this is the most personal, the most up close, most fun conference that I get to go to. And I was at the very first Alien Con. That was fun. I've been to some since, Contact in the Desert, UFO Congress. I mean, there's all kinds of conferences out there. They're all special and they're all great. And everyone brings something new. But this is a very special, up close and personal opportunity to meet some of the people that you have seen in this field, that you have learned from, read their books, maybe seen on TV, and including you, Samuel. Thank you.
Thank you.
So everyone, have a great week. I will see you Wednesday night for yes. I was like, wait, I'm traveling, but I'm not. I'll see you Wednesday night for Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. That'll be fun. And I will see you, if you get a chance, in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So come on down and be blessed. Thank you again. And have a great week, everybody.